So, hello, I'm Fabio. I'm a senior software engineer here at HubSpot. I'm an iOS developer, but I'm going to talk about internationalization, and this is not only an iOS issue. This is also for Androids and also for our front-end teams. And although the title of the presentation is like Mobile Internationalization, and for those who don't know, i18n is internationalization, I'm going to focus more on translations and localized strings, because this internationalization is like a really broad subject, and we only have like 10 minutes. So first, what's our problem here? So we have a growing number of non-English speaking customers. So you can see here that our revenue from international customers is growing. So we need to support more and more languages. Right now, we support 6 in-app languages, but we expect to support more as we grow. And our front-end developers, they use their own internal tools, like they have their own JS library to handle translations. But these tools, they're not compatible with Apple's and Google's libraries. So we really wanted to use these tools because they built a big infrastructure to solve this problem. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. And so just to describe a little bit how it works. So let's say you have your own app, your web app, and you want to translate your app. So you're going to create something called an English YAML file, language YAML file. So this has all your strings and also some strings with some parameters, like the username. So after you create this file, you're going to import our internal localization library, and you're going to start using these strings from this file in your code. So you're going to basically replace your strings with strings from the file. This is pretty certain like you guys did this before with other tools. And we have an internal web page here where you can whitelist your projects. So after you whitelist your projects, our translators, they will be notified, and they will start working on the translations. We also have a different web page where you can check the status of this translation, so all their progress. So let's say that I created this English file, and now I can see the percentage of the strings that were translated. It's a little bit small, but so let's say I'm looking for the Portuguese translation, and it's only 50% complete. So I can look at that, and I can wait until it's complete, or I can just click on a button there and get a pull request. If I don't do anything, when the translations are complete, we get a pull request inside our own repo with all the translations. So this is really cool, and we want to use this, but we can't. So what we did was we built a custom library for this. So both for iOS and Androids. And we also built the scripts to convert this YAML file, like a Ruby script. I don't know if you guys know, but YAML files are usually used with Ruby and these kind of languages. So we convert them to JSON files, and then we load these JSON files into our projects in runtime. So it looks a little bit like this. So this is the key. So we have detail, engagement events, meeting, past meeting with. So this is the path to fetch a string. And then we pass a parameter here. So we want to replace context with a context string, maybe a contact name in this case. So I don't know if you guys have used this kind of dynamic things, but they can be a little bit problematic. Let's say that some of these strings are missing. So this didn't go that well. So one of the problems we had, let's say we opened the app in Japanese. You will see some English text here. So that happens because our English translations is always there, but the Japanese translation might not be there. So we want to know when this kind of thing happens. We also make mistakes sometimes. So in this case, let's say you were using a wrong key to get the string. You had a typo. So you won't get the string in this case. You will just see this string for the key. And something else that can happen is that you can have missing strings. Let's say you're adding something to your codes, but it's missing on the translation file. So you also get to see this. And another thing that can happen is that you can sometimes forget to add the parameter. So in this case, we want to add something like works at some company, but we forgot to set the company, so you will only see a blank thing. So this is not nice. We clearly need something better. So we need something that can give us auto-completion and a nice syntax that fits into the language. If you use Swift, you want something that looks like Swift, or Kotlin, you want something that looks like Kotlin. We don't want to use something that looks like JavaScript. So another thing, you want something that's compile time safe. So if some string's missing, you want to get an error. You don't want this to go to the customers, right? And then a third thing is, if you're missing some translations from some other languages, you also want to know about this. So we also need warnings to tell us that these strings are missing. So because of this, we built a code generator. And this is a code generator. It's like, it takes YAML files as inputs, the same language YAML files that the front-end team use. And we generate Swift and Kotlin codes. It's compatible with Xcode, Android Studio. And it's primarily used for mobile apps, but it can also be extended to be used with like other kinds of apps, like macOS apps, command line tools, you name it. And it's written in Swift, so it runs on macOS and Linux. Sorry if there's any like Windows developers here. I don't think there's any, but like, yeah. So how does it work internally? So we take these YAML files, and we first give it to our YAML parser. And then we generate something that's sort of an input representation of this. So let's say you have some strings there for English. We're going to have an object here that has all these same strings. But this object's not tied to the representation itself in the file. So we can potentially have a different parser there. We can have like a JSON parser or XML. So if in your company you have something different, you could potentially adapt this tool to use your formats. And then we match and merge these representations to create something that's called like an output representation. And at this point, then we can see if some strings are missing in these other languages, and we can also, detect some other errors. And then after this, we give this input representation to our generator. So right now we support Kotlin and Swift, so we have a Kotlin generator and we have a Swift generator, and this will generate the code, basically. So we could potentially extend this and also support Objective-C, Java, or JavaScript, or any other language. As long as you create something that takes this output representation and gives some codes, it should work. So it's really easy to extend this if we need to. So now it's time for a demo, a live demo, and let's see how this goes. So here, I have Xcode open. This is a project. You can see that it already has some localized strings here. And I'm going to add some more strings to this. And I'm going to show you how it works and how easy it is. So here I have the English YAML file, and I have some other languages. I have Spanish, Portuguese, and Japanese. So in this case here, I think I'll add something about these events. Let's say Mobilize. So I'm basically creating first a namespace, and then I will create the string. So welcome. Whoops. Yeah, typing with one hand's like tricky. Whoops. And then I can write something like welcome to, and I can add some parameters here. Events. Okay. So now if we build this, you will see that I got some warnings here. It means that this string here is missing in my other languages. So I don't have any welcome for Portuguese, Spanish, or Japanese. We'll fix that soon, but first let me show you how to use this. So here I have my view controller. I have this title here, but I don't want to use this title. I want to use something different. So let's say that my title is localized strings, Mobilize, welcome. And the event name is Mobilize. You see that it's really easy, like even typing with one hand this time. And the auto-completion is really helpful. And you see it builds. So if I run this now, you will see that on the title of this view controller, you will see the welcome string that I just added. Let's just wait until Xcode does its thing. Cool. Awesome. So you can see here, welcome to Mobilize. So now let's try something different. Let's run this in a different language. Let's run this in Portuguese. So you see that the string is still in English. And that's because, well, we've got the warning saying this string won't be translated. So let's fix this. Let's go to the Portuguese file first, let's go to the English file, copy this, and let's paste it here. And let's change this to Portuguese, which is my first language. Wait, hold on. So now if we run this, you see that we have one less warning here. And now we should be able to see that string here. So, bem-vindo ao Mobilize, basically. And let me show you just one other thing. So when you go back to the code here, this looks like magic, right? You don't really understand what's going on here, right? It's all hidden from you. So if you really want to understand what's going on here, we can go and see the definition of this. And you will see that the generated code is actually really simple. It's basically a switch case. So depending on the language, we return a different string. And if this is a string that requires a parameter, this becomes a function. So it's really, really simple. And then you can see that in this case, for the string that I just added, the welcome string, it has only two versions, in Portuguese and English. And the default one is always English. And now, just to show you something else, what happens if let's say, if I remove this string here? You see that we have a compiler error. So this value is missing because now the generated code doesn't have this namespace and doesn't have this string, which is really good. And now Giovanni will talk a little bit about the Android version of this.
Thanks. So yeah, there's not much left to say. It's basically the same as the Swift version that Fabio just showed. So we have this English YAML file here on the Android project. So we have all these strings, beginning the things. So we have like an internal version with some Gradle scripts on our build stuff, but for this talk we just created like a community version and published as a plugin on JCenter. So if you want to try this, you just need to add this line to your Gradle file, just apply this plugin and add this dependence to your build script class path. So you just need this, you create a lang folder on your module, and you add the English YAML. You can have one lang folder and English YAML per module. So if you have like an Android project, as we have here, with like multiple modules, each thing's on one or multiple modules, you have one file per module, so you don't have like huge files. So what we have here is basically the same. We have this localized strings .hello. If you click here, the implementation of the Kotlin is pretty similar to the Swift one. So you have here your object, hello, and then you have basically like a switch case, just a when, depending on the language that you have on your phone. We return like a different string. So we'll do exactly the same. I will add a new namespace here, so Mobilize. Okay, that's it. So for each module that you have lang files, if you go to your Gradle tasks, you can open other, and then you see that you have i18n. We have a Kotlin generation and an XML generation. Because on Android, sometimes you want to just add this string to your layout files. So we generate a strings XML with all static strings that you have. So like this present alert, type your name. The ones that takes parameters you have to use on code. So just regenerate the Kotlin one. Okay, that's it. You get some warnings, the same. So your Portuguese file, Spanish, and Japanese does not completely match the English version because I just added the Mobilize string. So on our layout file, we have this type your name and the button. That's the XML stat generated. So I can open it here. So it's like you can see here that's generated strings. So I can run this app. No, not this one. This one. It's compiling. Yeah. Cool. So you can see that we have the title, we have the name, you have present and alert. So I can just type tests, show alert, hello test. I can change this text here now with the new string. So actually, I will leave the namespace as a hello. I just want to change this one, so I will change for localize string dot mobilize that we just added there dot hello. So event equals mobilize. I can just run it again. I removed the text, so it will be like, welcome to Mobilize. So, and it's exactly the same as iOS. If I remove this thing, I'll just delete it. Build. If I try to run it again, you see, I get a compilation error. Mobilize doesn't exist anymore. So in compile time, you're sure that you have like all your strings defined and you won't get like blank stuff or see the keys on your app. And yeah, that's it. I had to show.
Just one last thing here. If you guys are interested, we open source this tool, so you can scan these QR codes and you can contribute. So if you want to support more languages or if you think this is useful for you, there you go.